The communication channel opened to every major fleet in the galaxy. Millions of beings from hundreds of species listened as Captain Minho spoke. "I know many of you are angry," he began. "You feel betrayed by the truth about your origins. Some of you hate humanity for what our ancestors did. Others worship us for it. But right now, none of that matters." He brought up images of the approaching harvester ships on shared screens across the galaxy. These beings destroyed the most advanced civilization the galaxy has ever known. They're coming to finish what they started 5 billion years ago. If we fight among ourselves, they will harvest us all. But if we stand together, we might have a chance. High Arbiter Rookmar appeared on the screen, his face showing exhaustion and fear. "Why should we trust you?" he asked. "You could use this crisis to seize power." Ambassador Subin answered before Minho could. She was young, but her voice carried authority. "Because we're opening the archives right now," she said. "Every piece of ancient human technology, every weapon design, every scientific breakthrough, we're sharing it all freely with every species. No conditions. No control. If you want to hate us later, fine. But survive first." Across the galaxy, data streams began to flow. The ancient human knowledge poured into the databases of every civilization. Weapons that could split atoms. Ships that could fold space. Shields that could turn energy into matter. Elder Vexthar, the old avian scientist, examined the incoming data. His eyes widened. "This is real," he said with wonder. "They're actually giving us everything." He looked at Rookmar. "We've been wrong about them. Not just about their history, but about their intentions." Slowly, cautiously, other species began to respond. The insectoid fleets powered down their weapons. The reptilian armada moved into defensive positions alongside human ships. Even Rookmar, proud and stubborn, ordered his forces to stand with humanity. "We'll settle our differences after we survive," he said gruffly. "If we survive." Fleet Commander Hunsu took command of the Unified Defense Force. He had trained his whole life for fleet combat, but never imagined commanding 40 different species at once. "We have 3 days before the harvesters reach optimal attack position," he reported. "We need to prepare." The curator helped organize the defense. Dr. Jisoo worked with alien scientists to adapt ancient human weapons to modern ships. Professor Day coordinated construction of new defensive platforms. Even Colonel Jihoon and Dr. Sora worked together, putting aside their disagreement for the greater need. But as they prepared, Dr. Mireille made a disturbing discovery. "The harvesters aren't just ships," she explained to the command staff. "They're collectors of consciousness. They harvest advanced minds and absorb them into their collective. Every civilization they've defeated is still inside them, trapped in a form of digital slavery. Can we free them?" Minho asked. "I don't know," Mireille admitted, "but the ancient consciousness might. It exists in a similar state just voluntarily." The ancient human consciousness had been quiet since revealing itself. Now it spoke again. "The harvesters were once like us," it said. "Billions of years ago, they were individual beings who merged their consciousness seeking immortality. But they lost themselves in the process. Now they consume other minds to fill the emptiness they created. Is there a way to stop them without destroying them?" Ambassador Yuna asked. "Perhaps," the consciousness replied, "but it would require a sacrifice. Someone would need to enter their collective consciousness and break it from the inside. They would likely be lost in the process." Captain Minho felt a cold certainty settle over him. He knew what he would have to do. But first they had to survive the initial attack. The harvesters arrived on schedule. 20 massive vessels emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the galactic core. They began their attack immediately. The United Fleet met them with everything they had. Ancient human weapons blazed alongside modern alien technology. Energy beams that could vaporize planets struck the harvester ships. Missiles that could crack moons exploded against their hulls. The harvesters absorbed it all and kept coming. "They're adapting to every weapon we use," Fleet Commander Hyunsu reported, "just like they did 5 billion years ago." "Then we need something they haven't seen before," Jisoo said. She was working frantically at her station. The ancient humans fought alone. They only had one perspective, one way of thinking. "But we have 40 species here," she was right. The Velthris scientists had developed a dimensional frequency that disrupted the harvesters' shields. The Rookmar bioengineers created a weapon that targeted the organic components of the harvester ships. The humans contributed strategic coordination. Dozens of other species added their unique innovations. Together, They began to hurt the harvesters in ways the ancient humans never could. But it wasn't enough. The harvesters were too strong, too experienced. They had been harvesting civilizations for billions of years. They knew how to adapt. "We're losing," Admiral Taehyun reported. "We've destroyed 2 of their ships, but they've taken out 1/4 of our fleet. At this rate, we'll be wiped out in hours." Minho made his decision. "Dr. Mirai, can you prepare a neural interface device? Something that would let me enter the Harvester Collective?" "Captain, no," Lieutenant Hana protested. "You'll be lost." "Maybe," Minho said. "But if I can disrupt them from inside, it might give us the advantage we need." The ancient consciousness spoke directly into his mind. "If you do this, I will go with you. We both exist as separate beings now, but together, we might have the strength to break their collective." Minho felt the weight of 5 billion years of sacrifice. His ancestors had given up everything for this moment. He could do no less. "Prepare the device," he ordered. The neural interface was ready within an hour. Minho said his goodbyes to his crew. Dr. Jisoo hugged him tightly. Ambassador Yuna told him he was the bravest person she had ever known. Even Colonel Jihoon saluted him with respect. "Finish what we started 5 billion years ago," Professor Day said quietly. "End this cycle." Minho activated the interface. His consciousness launched across space, riding on a beam of quantum entanglement. He felt the ancient consciousness join him, vast and strange but oddly comforting. They entered the Harvester Collective. It was hell. Billions of trapped minds screamed in digital cages. Civilizations that had died millennia ago were kept alive in eternal suffering. The harvesters fed on their pain and creativity, draining them slowly forever. "This ends now," Minho said. He and the ancient consciousness began to work. They weren't trying to destroy the collective. They were trying to free it, to give it back the individuality it had lost. It was like untangling a knot the size of a galaxy. But they had help. The trapped civilizations, sensing hope for the first time in ages, began to help. Together, they started to break the chains. Outside, the harvester ships began to slow. Their attacks became confused. They were losing coordination. "Whatever the captain is doing, it's working," Fleet Commander Hyun-soo reported. "All ships full assault!" The United Fleet pressed their advantage. Harvester ships began to break apart, not from weapons but from internal collapse. Inside the collective, Minho felt himself fading. The effort was too much for one mind, even supported by the ancient consciousness. "Thank you," the ancient consciousness said. "You've done what we could not. You've proven that diversity creates strength, that cooperation defeats domination. The galaxy is finally what we hoped it would be." "Will I make it back?" Minho asked. "I don't know," the consciousness admitted. "But your sacrifice will save billions." "Is that not enough?" Minho thought of his crew, his friends, the galaxy he had helped save. "Yes," he said. "It's enough." With one final push, they shattered the Harvester Collective. Billions of trapped minds went free. The Harvester ships went dark and drifted, empty shells without the consciousness that had driven them. The battle was over. The galaxy had won. Minho's body lay on the Genesis station connected to the neural interface. Dr. Mirai checked his vital signs and smiled through tears. "He's alive," she said. "Barely, but alive." And the ancient consciousness, it dispersed itself, gave every freed mind a piece of itself to help them recover. The galaxy began to heal. The species that had fought among themselves now worked together to repair the damage. They built a new council, one based on true equality. Captain Minho recovered slowly. When he finally woke, weeks later, he found the galaxy had changed. Humans were no longer seen as conquerors or gods. They were family. Elder siblings in a galaxy full of relatives. Ambassador Yuna helped establish the new galactic government. The ancient technologies were shared freely. Each species contributed their unique strengths. On Earth, in a quiet garden, humans built a memorial. An inscription read, "We were the first to walk among the stars. We chose to sleep so our children could run. Today, the galaxy runs free." Years later, young students from 100 species visited the Genesis station on field trips. They learned about ancient humanity not as conquerors, but as ancestors who loved their children enough to sacrifice everything. And somewhere in the quantum foam of space, fragments of the ancient consciousness watched their garden bloom with pride. The cycle had ended. The galaxy was finally truly free. The news spread like fire across the galaxy. On every inhabited world, People watched the recordings the curator had broadcast. They saw the truth about ancient humanity. They learned that their own civilizations had been uplifted, that their DNA carried traces of human engineering. The reactions were immediate and violent. On some worlds, humans were worshipped as creator gods. Temples were built overnight. People prayed to the ancient ones who had seeded the stars. On other worlds, humans were hated as manipulators who had played with life itself. Riots broke out. Human colonists were attacked. The Galactic Council dissolved within days. Species that had worked together for millions of years now fought over the meaning of the revelation. Some demanded access to ancient human technology. Others wanted it destroyed. The unity that had maintained galactic peace was shattered. But the worst division was among humans themselves. On the Genesis station, two groups had formed. Colonel Jihoon led one faction. He stood in the command center surrounded by supporters, arguing with a hologram of Dr. Sora, who led the opposing group. "We have a responsibility," Jihoon said firmly. "Our ancestors built this technology. They created this galaxy. We should reclaim what is ours and restore proper order." "Proper order?" Sora replied angrily. "You mean human dominance? That's exactly what our ancestors were trying to avoid. They chose to descend because they understood that power without equality is tyranny." "The galaxy is falling apart," Jihoon argued. "Species are fighting each other. Without leadership, there will be chaos. We have the technology to stop it." "By forcing others to submit?" Sora asked. "By becoming the masters our ancestors refused to be?" The argument had been going on for days. Minho watched from the side, feeling torn. He understood both positions. The galaxy did need stability, but Jihoon's solution felt wrong. Ambassador Yuna stood beside him. "We need to make a choice," she said quietly. "The two factions will tear humanity apart if we don't unite behind something." Before Minho could respond, Dr. Mirai rushed in. "Captain, you need to see this," she said breathlessly. "The curator isn't just a computer program. There's something else, a consciousness stored in the quantum substrate of the station." She brought up readings on a display. The original humans didn't just build the curator to guide the galaxy. They uploaded their collective consciousness into it before descending. Every human who participated in the descent is still here, in a sense. They've been evolving, changing for 5 billion years. "Are they still human?" Minho asked. "I don't know," Mirai admitted. "But they're waking up. The station's power levels are increasing. Whatever they've become, they're about to emerge." Across the galaxy, chaos continued to spread. The younger species, led by what remained of Rookmar's faction, attacked the Genesis station. They believed that controlling the station would give them the power to reshape the galaxy to their advantage. Admiral Taihyun's fleet fought to defend the station, but they were badly outnumbered. Ships exploded in the deadly space around the galactic core. Good people died for a truth that was supposed to bring understanding, not war. Inside the station, Minho explored deeper levels that the curator had not shown them before. Professor Day accompanied him, along with Lieutenant Hana for protection. They found a chamber sealed with technology beyond anything they had seen. When Minho touched the door, it recognized his DNA and opened. Inside was a library of sorts, but not one with books. It held pure information, stored in ways that hurt the mind to perceive. Day carefully accessed one of the files. What they saw made them understand the full truth of the descent. "They weren't running away," Day whispered, his voice shaking. "They were preparing a trap." The ancient records showed the Harvester's first attack on humanity 5 billion years ago. The ancient humans had fought with all their incredible technology. They had lost, not because they were weak, but because the Harvesters had evolved over billions of years to defeat advanced civilizations. They knew every strategy, every weapon, every defense. The Harvesters only target spacefaring civilizations, Minho read from the files. They wait until species reach peak advancement, then they harvest them. They feed on the energy of advanced consciousness. But if a civilization isn't advanced, Hana said, understanding dawning, they're not worth harvesting. Exactly, Day confirmed. Ancient humans descended to hide from the Harvesters. But more than that, they seeded the galaxy with multiple species because they calculated that diverse civilizations working together might find the solution that one species alone could not. It was never about arrogance, Minho said quietly. It was about survival. They sacrificed everything in the hope that their children and the children they created would succeed where they failed. Suddenly, The station shook. Warning alarms sounded throughout the structure. The harvesters have entered the galactic core, Admiral Tae-hyun reported over communication. We count 20 massive vessels. Each one is larger than our biggest moon. Minho raced back to the command center. On the screens he saw the harvester ships. They looked organic, like they had been grown rather than built. They pulsed with an eerie light. A communication came through, not in words but in pure meaning that everyone could understand. We have returned to complete the harvest we began 5 billion years ago. You cannot hide from us. You cannot fight us. Submit and your end will be painless. Colonel Ji-hoon immediately activated the station's ancient weapons. Massive energy beams lashed out at the harvester ships. The weapons were powerful, more powerful than anything modern civilization could build. The harvesters absorbed the energy and grew stronger. Stop, the curator's voice cried out. Those weapons won't work. The harvesters have adapted to them. That's why ancient humanity failed. Then what do we do? Ji-hoon demanded. Before anyone could answer, the ancient consciousness began to fully awaken. The station's lights brightened. A presence filled every mind, vast and ancient and strange. It was human, but not human. 5 billion years of existence in a quantum state had changed it into something beyond what biological life could understand. It looked at the galaxy it had created and the crisis it faced. My children, it said, and the voice was like a billion humans speaking at once, both those born from the descent and those we uplifted. I have watched you grow. I have guided you gently, hoping you would find your own paths. Now you must choose your future. The consciousness showed them possibilities. One future where humans reclaimed their technology and ruled the galaxy, but eventually became as isolated as their ancestors. Another where they rejected their heritage and let the harvesters destroy everything. And a third option, harder to see, where all species work together as true equals. I cannot fight the harvesters for you, the ancient consciousness said. That would defeat the purpose of everything we sacrificed. You must face them yourselves. Together. Young Ambassador Subin, who had been working tirelessly to calm the panicking species, stepped forward. Then we need to stop fighting each other, she said firmly. Humans, we need to share everything. All the ancient knowledge, all the technology, not as masters but as equals. You would give our advantage away? Colonel Ji-hoon asked in disbelief. It was never our advantage, Dr. Sora said, supporting Subin. It belongs to the galaxy our ancestors created. Minho made his decision. Open the archives. Full access for all species. And get me a communication line to every fleet in the galaxy, including Rookmars. Captain, they were trying to kill us an hour ago, Hana protested. Then we have an hour to change their minds, Minho replied. Because if we don't work together, we all die. And 5 billion years of sacrifice will mean nothing. He looked at the approaching harvester ships on the screen. They had days, maybe less. The galaxy's greatest test was here, and they were still fighting each other. The journey to the galactic core took 3 weeks. As the eternal dawn traveled deeper toward the center of the galaxy, space itself began to change. Stars became more densely packed. Radiation levels climbed. The darkness of space gave way to a constant glow from billions of suns. Admiral Tae-hyun's fleet joined them on the 5th day. He brought 20 warships, the largest force humanity could spare. It wouldn't be enough if the Council decided to fight, but it was something. The Council fleet is 2 days behind us, Tae-hyun reported during a secure communication. High Arbiter Rookmar himself is leading them. He's bringing everything he has. Minho studied the tactical display. How many ships? Over 200, Tae-hyun said grimly. We're outnumbered 10-1. Then we better reach the core before they catch us, Minho replied. Dr. Mirai, a quantum physicist who had joined them from Earth, was studying the strange readings from ahead. She had been quiet for most of the journey, but now she looked excited. Captain, you need to see this, she said. The structure at the core isn't just big. It's doing something to space-time itself. It's bending reality around it. On the main screen, the image resolved slowly. What they saw made everyone on the bridge fall silent. The structure was impossible to comprehend at first. It stretched across space for distances that shouldn't be possible. It looked like a city made of light and metal, floating in the deadly radiation of the galactic core. 10,000 solar systems could fit inside it. How is it even standing there? Lieutenant Hana whispered. The gravity should tear it apart. It's not standing in space, Mireille said, her voice full of wonder. It's holding space together. This structure is maintaining the stability of the entire galactic core. As they approached, the structure began to react. Lights activated across its surface. Patterns appeared, the same patterns they had seen in all the other sites. We're being scanned, Jisoo reported. It's reading our genetic signatures. Then a voice filled every speaker on the ship. It spoke in perfect Korean, with an accent that sounded ancient and strange. Welcome home, the voice said. I have waited so long for you to return. Minho stepped forward. Who are you? I am the curator, the voice replied. I was built by your ancestors 5.2 billion years ago. I have maintained this station and guided the galaxy while waiting for humanity to evolve again and find me. That's impossible, Ambassador Yuna said via the communication link. Humans evolved on Earth 50,000 years ago. Modern humans did, the curator agreed. But you are not the first humans. You are the children of the first humans. You are their gift to themselves. The station opened before them, creating a safe passage through the deadly radiation. Minho ordered the fleet to follow the eternal dawn inside. They docked in a bay that could have held 1,000 ships. As they stepped onto the station, artificial gravity held them steady. The air was breathable. Everything was designed for human comfort. The curator appeared as a hologram, taking the shape of a simple geometric pattern that floated in the air. Come, it said. I will show you what you have forgotten. It led them through corridors that seemed to stretch forever. Finally, they entered a vast chamber. The walls came alive with images, holographic recordings from billions of years ago. They saw humans, not modern humans, but close enough. They walked on planets that no longer existed. They built ships that made current technology look like stone tools. They mapped the galaxy, studied every star, charted every world. This was the first human civilization, the curator explained. They rose 5 billion years ago. They became the most advanced species the galaxy had ever known. They could reshape planets. They could extend their lives indefinitely. They understood the fundamental laws of reality. What happened to them? Minho asked. The hologram changed. It showed ancient humans seeding planets with life, building structures across the galaxy, encoding information into the very fabric of space-time. They looked ahead, the curator said. They saw their own future and they did not like what they found. They had become too powerful. There was nothing left to challenge them, nothing to strive for. They realized that unlimited power without purpose leads to stagnation. The images showed something incredible. Ancient humans deliberately changing themselves, removing their own technology, reducing their own intelligence. They chose to descend, the curator continued. They returned to Earth, the world where they first evolved. They made themselves primitive again. But before they did, they built me. They built this station. They seeded the galaxy with life that would eventually evolve into new intelligent species. Professor Day spoke up. Why would they do that? Because they wanted their children to have what they could not, the curator said. The joy of discovery, the excitement of learning, the satisfaction of growing. They reset the galaxy so that new species could rise, and they reset themselves so that humanity could evolve again, naturally without the burden of their ancestors' technology. But you said you were guiding the galaxy, Jisoo pointed out. How? The hologram changed again. It showed the event 10 million years ago when all the elder species suddenly appeared. That was my gift, the curator said. When humanity had been primitive long enough, when I was certain you would eventually evolve naturally back to intelligence, I uplifted other species. I gave them the foundation they needed to build civilizations. I created the galaxy you know today, a galaxy full of diverse, intelligent life, all waiting for humanity's return. Minho felt overwhelmed. Every species in the galaxy was created to wait for us? Not created, the curator corrected. Uplifted. The life was already there, seeded by ancient humans. I simply helped it along. And every species carries markers in their DNA, traces of human genetic engineering from 5 billion years ago. You are all connected. Suddenly alarms blared. Lieutenant Hana checked her communicator. The Council fleet has arrived, she reported. They're surrounding the station. High Arbiter Rookmar's face appeared on a communication screen. His eyes were cold and angry. Surrender the station, he demanded. This information cannot be allowed to spread. The stability of galactic civilization depends on maintaining the current order. Ambassador Yuna stepped forward to respond. You want to suppress the truth? You want to keep billions of beings ignorant about their own history? The truth would cause chaos, Rukmar said. Every species would question their place. There would be wars over who has the right to ancient human technology. The galaxy would burn. Minho looked at Yuna, then at the curator. Can you broadcast this information to every inhabited world in the galaxy? Yes, the curator said. My signal can reach everywhere. Do it, Minho ordered. No, Rukmar shouted. I will destroy your ships. Then destroy us, Yuna said calmly. But you cannot stop the truth anymore. The curator sent out a massive broadcast. On thousands of worlds, billions of beings from hundreds of species received the complete historical record. They saw ancient humans building their civilization. They saw the descent. They saw the truth. The galaxy changed in that moment. The lies that had maintained order for millions of years crumbled. But the curator had one more revelation. There is something else you must know, it said. Your ancestors did not descend only because they chose to. They were running from something. An enemy they could not defeat. And I calculate that enemy will return approximately now. Long-range sensors across the fleet lit up with warnings. At the edge of the galaxy, massive objects were crossing the barrier. Ships larger than planets moving with terrible purpose. What are they? Admiral Taehyun asked. The harvesters, the curator said quietly. The reason ancient humanity chose to sleep. The reason I was built to create a galaxy full of diverse species. Your ancestors knew that one species alone could not defeat them. They needed all of you. Every species working together. On the main screen, the alien ships continued to approach. The galaxy had just learned the truth about humanity. Now they would all have to face the enemy that had made ancient humans choose extinction over surrender. The real test was about to begin. The planet's surface was covered in red dust that swirled in the thin wind. Minho stood at the entrance to the underground complex, looking down into darkness that seemed to go on forever. This was the third site they had visited in secret, and each one had been more disturbing than the last. The Council patrol ships are 12 hours away, Lieutenant Hana reported. She was their military escort, a sharp woman who had agreed to this mission even knowing it could end her career. We need to work fast. Professor Day was already climbing down into the complex with his team. He was an old man with gray hair and tired eyes, but he moved with surprising energy. He had spent his whole life studying the ruins that had blocked human colonization. Now we finally had a chance to explore them properly. These structures matched the others Day called up from below. Same architectural patterns, same impossible materials. Whoever built these had technology far beyond anything we have today. Minho climbed down after him with Jisoo close behind. The walls of the complex glowed with a soft blue light that seemed to come from the material itself. They didn't need flashlights. The ancient structure provided its own illumination. How is this still working after billions of years? Hana asked as she followed them down. That's what we're trying to figure out, Jisoo replied. She held up a scanner, but it gave confused readings. These materials shouldn't exist. They use quantum properties that our scientists say are impossible. The complex went deep into the planet's crust. They walked for an hour before reaching the main chamber. It was enormous, larger than any building Minho had ever seen. The ceiling was so high it disappeared into shadows. In the center of the chamber stood rows of cylindrical pods, hundreds of them. They looked like stasis chambers. Careful, Day warned as they approached. We don't know if they're still active. Jisoo scanned the nearest pod. Her face went pale. There's organic material inside. Still preserved. Captain, I need to take a sample. She carefully extracted a tiny amount of material from the pod. The analysis took several minutes. When the results appeared, Jisoo sat down hard on the ground. What is it? Minho asked. DNA, she whispered. Human DNA or something very close to it. But the structure is different. It's like looking at a template that modern human DNA is based on. This isn't our ancestor. This is what we were copied from. The implications crashed over Minho like a wave. Are you saying humans didn't evolve naturally on Earth? I'm saying these samples are billions of years old and they're more human than we are, Jisoo said. We're not the original. We're the copy. Professor Day was examining the walls. He called them over to see strange symbols carved into the ancient material. I've seen these patterns before, he said, at every failed colony site. I've spent 30 years documenting them. They're not random. They're a signature. Whoever built all of these structures wanted us to know they were connected. Suddenly, Hana's communicator beeped urgently. Captain, we have a problem. Someone leaked our location. The council knows we're here. Minho cursed under his breath. How long do we have? The patrol ships change course. They'll be here in 6 hours, not 12. Pack up everything we can carry, Minho ordered. We need evidence the council can't suppress. They worked quickly, taking samples and recording as much data as possible. As they prepared to leave, Jisoo discovered something in the complex's computer system. There's a message here, she said. It's addressed to humans. It says that we should look for the truth in the Forbidden Council archives. The council has been hiding this? Minho asked. It looks that way. They returned to the Eternal Dawn just as the council patrol ships appeared on the horizon. Minho ordered an immediate jump to faster-than-light speed. They escaped, but he knew there would be consequences. 3 days later, Ambassador Yuna stood before an emergency council session. The chamber was tense. High Arbiter Rookmar looked angry enough to breathe fire. You have violated council law, he declared. You entered restricted sites without authorization. You stole protected artifacts. This is grounds for expelling humanity from the council. We found evidence, Yuna said firmly. Evidence that you've been hiding from us. Lies, Rookmar snapped. You found ancient ruins and invented a fantasy to make yourselves feel important. Then explain the DNA samples, Yuna challenged. Explain the linguistic patterns. Explain why all these structures point back to Earth. Belthris spoke up from his perch. The Council has maintained galactic peace for millions of years. We cannot allow unfounded claims to disrupt the established order. All sites mentioned in your illegal investigation are hereby declared permanently off limits. Any human ship approaching them will be fired upon. Yuna felt her heart sink. They were going to suppress everything. That night, as she sat alone in her quarters, her door chimed. A strange alien stood there, insect-like with multiple eyes. She recognized him as Brecthen, a scientist from one of the minor species. I can only stay a moment, Brecthen said quietly. I'm risking everything by coming here. But you deserve to know the truth. He handed her a data chip. These are files from the restricted council archives. Files that go back millions of years. Your people aren't the first to find these ancient human structures. Every few 100,000 years someone discovers them. And every time the elder species suppress the information. Why? Yuna asked. Because 10 million years ago, every major civilization in the galaxy appeared at almost the same time, Brecthen said. Before that, there's nothing. It's as if someone turned on a switch and suddenly we all existed. The Council has never explained this. They prefer to pretend it's natural evolution, but the timeline is impossible. He moved toward the door. Read the files. You'll see. The elder species aren't as old as they claim. Something uplifted all of us, and they're terrified that something was humanity. After he left, Yuna spent all night reading the files. The evidence was overwhelming. The Council had found hundreds of ancient human sites over millions of years. They had all been classified, hidden, forgotten. The elder species had built their entire power structure on being the oldest and wisest. They couldn't accept that they might have been created by the very species they looked down on. She sent the files to Minho immediately. On the Eternal Dawn, the crew gathered to review the information. The mood was grim. So the Council has been lying to everyone for millions of years, Lieutenant Hana said. Not lying exactly, Professor Day corrected. More like choosing not to investigate. If you don't ask the questions, you don't have to face uncomfortable answers. Jisoo pulled up a new message on the main screen. Captain, we're receiving another signal. This one is different. It's much stronger, coming from the direction of the galactic core. The signal resolved into coordinates and a simple message. Minho, read it aloud. Come home, children of the first dawn. Your garden awaits. The galactic core, Professor Day breathed. That's the center of the galaxy. Nothing lives there. The radiation and gravity make it impossible. Unless you have technology billions of years ahead of us, Jisoo said softly. Minho looked at his crew. The Council will try to stop us. This could mean war. We have to know, Yuna said via the communication link. We have to understand what we really are. Minho nodded slowly. Set course for the galactic core. Whatever is waiting there has been calling to us for billions of years. It's time we answered. As the ship turned toward the heart of the galaxy, long-range sensors detected something massive near the core, a structure so large it dwarfed anything they had seen before. a structure that was waiting for them. Behind them, the Council was mobilizing its fleets. The elder species had decided that this secret was worth fighting for. The race to the galactic core had begun, and only one side could reach it first. The starship moved silently through the dark edges of space where few had ever traveled. Captain Minho stood on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the main screen. Something massive was out there, hidden behind the dying light of an old red star. "Captain, you need to see this," Dr. Jisoo called from her station. Her fingers moved quickly across the holographic displays. "The readings don't make sense. This structure is impossible." Minho walked over to her station and looked at the data, his breath caught in his throat. The structure was enormous, wrapping completely around the star like a shell. A Dyson sphere. He had read about them in theoretical papers, but no one had ever found one. "How old is it?" Minho asked. Jisoo checked her instruments 3 times before answering. 4.7 billion years old. "Captain, that's older than most stars in this sector. It's older than any known civilization in the galaxy." The crew of the Eternal Dawn had been searching for ancient artifacts for 2 years. They had found interesting things before, but nothing like this. Minho felt his heart race with excitement and fear. "Take us closer," he ordered, slowly. As they approached, the true scale of the sphere became clear. It was built from materials that their scanners couldn't identify. The surface was covered in patterns that looked almost like writing, but no computer could translate them. "I'm detecting a signal," the communications officer reported. "It's very faint, coming from inside the sphere. Can you boost it?" Minho asked. The officer worked for several minutes. Then a sound filled the bridge. It wasn't music or language, not exactly. It was something in between, something that made Minho's mind hurt in a strange way. "Wait," Jisoo said suddenly. "Stop, play that section again." The sound repeated. Jisoo's face went pale. "What is it?" Minho asked. "Those aren't just random sounds," she whispered. "They're words. Very, very old words. I think they're based on ancient Korean." The bridge went silent. Everyone stared at Jisoo. "That's impossible," the first officer said. "Korean is a human language. This structure is billions of years old. Humans have only been in space for a few hundred years." "I know what I'm hearing," Jisoo insisted. She pulled up linguistic analysis programs and began working. "It's not modern Korean. It's something much older, mixed with mathematical formulas, but the root structure is definitely there." Minho felt a chill run down his spine. "Can you translate any of it?" Jisoo worked through the night. Minho stayed with her, bringing her coffee and watching as she slowly pieced together fragments of meaning. The rest of the crew took turns scanning the sphere, looking for a way inside. Finally, as the ship's artificial morning arrived, Jisoo sat back in her chair. "I've got something," she said. Her voice was tired but excited. "It's not a complete translation, but I can read some of it. The message talks about something called the seeding and the long sleep. It mentions children who will forget." "And Captain, there are star charts?" "Charts to where?" Minho asked. Jisoo brought up the holographic display. A map of the galaxy appeared with one point highlighted in bright blue. "Earth," she said. "The charts point directly to Earth's solar system. And there are references throughout the text to humanity's first cycle, whatever that means." Minho stared at the map. His home world, the birthplace of all humans. What could it possibly have to do with a structure built billions of years before humans should have existed? "We need to report this to the Galactic Council," he said finally. "This is too big for us to handle alone." 3 days later, Ambassador Yuna stood before the Galactic Council on the capital world. The council chamber was enormous, filled with representatives from 17 different alien species. Some looked like birds, others like reptiles, and some were completely strange, unlike anything from Earth. "This is ridiculous," High Arbiter Rukmar said. He was a tall reptilian with dark scales and cold eyes. "You expect us to believe that humans, the youngest species in the council, are somehow connected to a structure older than most stars? This is either a fraud or a misunderstanding." "We have the data," Yuna said calmly. "The linguistic patterns are clear. We're not claiming to understand what it means, but we cannot ignore it." Velthris, the avian chief archaeologist, ruffled his feathers. "I have studied ancient civilizations for 300 years. My species has a continuous historical record going back 10 million years. We have never found anything suggesting humans existed before your emergence on Earth 50,000 years ago." "Then how do you explain the language?" Yuna demanded. "Coincidence," Rukmar said coldly. Or perhaps your team saw what they wanted to see. The elder species of this galaxy have established the timeline of galactic history. Humans are newcomers. Accept your place. Yuna felt anger rise in her chest, but she kept her voice level. We request permission to investigate further. There are more sites mentioned in the sphere's data. Denied, Rukmar said. The structure will be classified as a protected archaeological site and sealed. No one will investigate it further without council approval. Yuna knew that approval would never come. The elder species had built their power on being the oldest and wisest. They would not accept any challenge to that position. She returned to the Eternal Dawn with bad news. Minho listened to her report with growing frustration. So they're just going to ignore it? He asked. Worse, Yuna said. They're going to bury it. Jisoo looked up from her station. Captain, I'm receiving another signal from the sphere. It's much stronger this time. Everyone rushed to look at her screen. The sphere was now broadcasting on multiple frequencies. The signals were spreading across the galaxy like ripples in water. It's sending coordinates, Jisoo said, her hands flying across the controls. 13 locations. All of them are planets where human colonists tried to settle but found ruins that made the planets unsuitable. Minho felt his pulse quicken. Those ruins that stopped our colonies? Yes, Jisoo confirmed. Every single failed colony site. The sphere is pointing us directly to them. The communications officer interrupted. Captain, I'm getting messages from other human ships near those planets. They're all reporting the same thing. The old ruins are activating. They're sending signals too. Minho looked at Yuna, then at Jisoo. He knew what he had to do, even though it meant defying the council. Plot a course to the nearest site, he ordered. If the council won't investigate, we will. That's against council law, the first officer warned. I know, Minho said. But something is calling to us. Something that has been waiting for billions of years. I'm not going to ignore it just because it makes the elder species uncomfortable. As the Eternal Dawn's engines powered up, the sphere sent one final burst of data. Jisoo quickly translated the message. It was just 3 words, but they changed everything. Come home, children. The ship jumped into faster-than-light travel, leaving the sphere behind. But Minho knew they were not leaving the mystery behind. They were heading straight into the heart of it. Across the galaxy, on 13 different worlds, ancient structures were waking up. They had been waiting for a very long time. Now finally their creator's descendants had returned. The truth was about to be revealed, and it would shake the foundations of everything the galaxy believed about itself.